Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is The Thinking Atheist Worldwide.
This show today is actually the audio from a Facebook Live session. I've got the link in the description box of the show. So if you'd like to watch that and you're on Facebook, you can just click that link. But this is me working still from kind of a makeshift studio as I wait for a warranted computer to be replaced, and it's taking a while. So you'll hear a little bit of distortion in the audio a few times during the broadcast. Please excuse that. My apologies. I hope you enjoy the content anyway, and thank you so much for listening. I'm back from Europe, my friends. My first time ever at the age of 50 going to Europe. It was an amazing time. Went to London, then down to Paris, took the train, the high speed, awesome. Then up to, Bruges, and then we went to Amersfoort and Amsterdam, and then flew home, just got home and still kind of sleeping off the jet lag. But I have thoughts. I have some thoughts. And I thought I might share them with you. By the way, I have a poll in the description box of the video asking about the British royal family, because this is part of what I want to talk about. Is the British royal family a necessary and important tradition and a tourist attraction which benefits everybody everywhere, or is it an obscene waste of time and money featuring people dressed up like chess pieces? This is my question. Okay? You can tell I just got back from Belgium and Amsterdam and everywhere else. Chocolate. I get chocolate. I get so much good chocolate. Verkade. Milk chocolate. It's freaking delicious. They sell this at airports. It's probably hugely touristy. It's probably the Dutch equivalent of the Twinkie, but it's still delicious. I got Dumont chocolate. Is it Dumont? Dumon from the chocolatier in Bruges. By the way, Bruges is like a 16th century city made up of nothing but castles and gift shops. It's just castles and gift shops. And it's lovely. It's amazing. But they had a chocolatier and they made this stuff right there. And we verified they made it right there. It's delicious. And I had 3 different people bring me Stroop waffles. Stroop waffles. One guy, even a tremendous dude, sent me video of them making the Stroop waffles that he offered me as a gift, because they know I discovered these recently and did a podcast about Stroop waffles. They're delicious. It's like if you were to load a shotgun shell with sugar and then you were to shoot yourself in the mouth. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. You can't do a lot of them because your teeth will just freaking rot right out of your head. But thank you for the generous gifts. I met amazing people. I have some observations. This is not like me showing you my vacation slides. This is hopefully going to be a little more interesting than that. But I have some thoughts. London, an amazing city. Standing under the Parliament walls, looking up at Big Ben, under construction, but still majestic. Looking at Westminster Abbey after the sun goes down and they have it so beautifully lit. In Westminster Chapel, you could hear the choirs from within. It's amazing. The history was like in many ways going back in time, despite the fact that it was kind of touristy. I mean, it was still amazing walking through London at night, just soaking it in. And so the next morning, Natalie said, hey, would you like to go see the changing of the guard, which they do, I think, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Oh, yeah, sure. That sounds like an interesting and historic thing. Okay. So we get up and we begin our walk because we were just a few blocks from Buckingham Palace. And there were people everywhere to go see the changing of the guard. I read a little bit about it in advance. And so I'm thinking, they come in, they have a short ceremony, and there's 2 or 3 guards, I guess, standing in front of the palace. And I was thinking, they're just going to come and switch out and it'll be a brief ceremony. But upon reading, it turns out this is like a 45 minutes exercise. We show up almost an hour early and there were already people everywhere. And they were coming in from all sides and they just loaded up the entire courtyard, going out into the park and down the sidewalks and the drive. People everywhere. I can't imagine getting there past 10:30, started at like 11, because you'd have been so far away as to not be able to see anything without a telephoto lens and a ladder. And so we were up right on the gate, and I have some video. I thought about posting it, but so I'm trying to absorb like the cultural and historic importance, the significance of the changing of the guard. And you're not just changing a guard. Essentially, the guards are always changing out every few hours, but this is like a changing of the troops. So they've got to an entire, let's call it a herd of guards, and they handle a few days and 2 hours shifts, and then they bring in this other group. Okay. All right. So we're standing there and we watch these guys and they're doing this kind of funky march. Now I feel bad for the Queen's Guard in this respect. I don't know what kind of training they had. I read that they are the elite, like these soldiers are the elite. So they're standing in front of Buckingham Palace, and then all of a sudden they'll, with very staccato movements, move, and turn their shoulders and rifle and over here, and then they begin this sort of, it's a very rigid march, and then they stamp their feet and turn, boom, 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 and then they walk back, and they have these very regimented things they do. It's almost like watching one of those little figures come out of a cuckoo clock, that kind of walks back and forth. And that's all they do. They're standing out there and and I'm thinking, the whole time I'm thinking, this is just for the tourists. Tradition, schmatrition. This is for the tourists. All right. All of a sudden we hear a marching band. Whatever they're playing, and all of a sudden they're coming from way back here, and these guys with these huge ass hats, they look like those buffers for shoe polish, big hats, they go way up, and so I'm guessing the hats give them a greater sense of height and size, which is intimidating if you're a soldier. So anyway, it's the marching band, and they're all coming and doing their thing, and they come in through the gates. Now they have an inspection of the soldiers. They're picking lint and shit off their whatever. And then they walk them all out. And then they just essentially just walk in little paces and circles, and they take a corner and they go back up, around. Another guy grabs the thing. He's got the sword and he takes the thing and a rifle back down and he puts it. And then they walk out here at different angles. So here, and then they go to the gate and go to the gate and go to the gate. And then they move around. Someone else screams, "Make way for the King's Guard." And then they come over here and they have some other thing. And before you know it, I'm wondering, what is happening here? The band plays some more. Whatever the song is. Now, while we are waiting for something significant to happen, and it's been probably almost 30 minutes, I hear the Queen's Guard play a song. And the trumpets are leading the melody, right? Now, you're standing here under Buckingham Palace in this hugely majestic, historic setting. Very regal, very regal. And you hear this. Now I look at Natalie. I said, are they playing Eric Clapton? They're playing Tears in Heaven. And after that, they played Thriller by Michael Jackson. It took me totally out of the moment. And then there's more people, "Make way for the Queen's Guard." And they're walking around. They've got the swords and the rifles, and they're all going circles and doing it. And after about 40 minutes, I looked at Natalie and I said, "This is the most elaborate nothing I have ever seen." The changing of the guard is the most elaborate nothing I have ever seen. At some point, they finally switched out. And then the marching band turns around and they go back off into wherever they came from. It was almost an hour. And I thought to myself, what did I just see? Like if I had to encapsulate it, beyond what I'm doing here, which is just sort of, kind of tweaking it because it's so odd. I mean, have you seen the changing of the guard? What were your thoughts? Did you actually have the thought, this is the most elaborate nothing that I have ever seen? It's obviously just for us, right? Just for the tourists. How much of what's happening over there around the royal family is just for the tourists? Yeah, sorry, Joe, I can't do accents, but if you want to see some great video, Google don't fuck with the Queen's Guard on YouTube. Because what happens is these poor guys are doing their, they're doing their patterns. And they're surrounded by tourists who are making fun of them, right? Making fun of them. So they're mimicking their march and they're trying to pose for selfies. And it's just, it's very disrespectful, I think. And, but if someone crosses a specific boundary or they touch the guard or they violate some protocol, these guys are all over them. Weapons pointed. I'm sure the weapons are not loaded, but they're very hardcore. Now, I'd like to know what kind of training. Are they actually elite guards or are they just glorified like a marching band? Are they merely symbolic? Are they trained in warfare? What's the qualification for the Queen's Guard? But I really kind of felt bad for them. And, whenever someone would get in their way, they'd scream that, make way. And these people would scatter and then these guys would go through. They do not like to be touched, apparently. I've often had questions about the royal family. Being here from the United States, I understand the appeal, the traditional appeal, the Queen and the prince and the princess and the majesty of it all and the ceremony and the Cinderella tale, and people seem to love it. What does the Queen actually do? Like, does she have any real power? And I'm not talking about just now at the age of 90, whatever. And I'm not trying to disrespect the Queen, but I'm asking a figurehead, which does what? Like, even if she conferences with the prime ministers, she's not really running anything. She might be advising, but advising how? What real power does she have? Like the king and the prince and the princesses, they are culturally popular and they have power in the court of public opinion, but what do they do in terms of the role of government? Are they merely the world's most expensive tourist attraction? And that's why in the poll that I have in the comment section, I have asked the question, is the British royal family a necessary institution and tradition which is really beneficial, or is it the biggest obscene waste of time and money featuring people in weird costumes? And I want to know, right? I want to know what, in fact, has anybody answered the poll yet? Let me take a look here. Publish now. Okay, forgive me. I'd forgotten to click the publish button. All right. So go up in the comment section and answer the question. Let's see how we do on the poll. I'm going to go back to Europe here. I come back from Europe to find that a dead pimp has won the election in Nevada. Dennis Hoff, who died a few weeks ago at the age of 72. I don't know, they call it the Bunny Ranch. He owned a series of brothels in Nevada where prostitution is legal. And I guess he had a big shindig when he was celebrating his 72nd birthday, and however they partied, they must have partied pretty hard because he died. Okay? So it's too late to take his name off of the Nevada ballot. Now, he is apparently some kind of God and country Republican, which is wacky. I mean, are people in Nevada who are evangelicals actually happy about a brothel owner on the ticket? So he has a 72nd birthday party, and he must have partied kind of hard because he dies. Too late to take his name off. And I don't know about you. I was talking to Natalie about it. I probably would have voted for him anyway, just because I wanted to see the headline, Dead Pimp Wins Nevada Election. I mean, how much worse could it be really anyway? How much more damage could he done? Hell, just prop him up, put a heater on him. I don't know. He wins. He wins the election. So now they got to go back and do some kind of a runoff between the remaining candidates. It's just a big mess. But to live in a country that would elect a dead pimp which is supposedly supposed to represent evangelical Christian America. What planet do we live on? Did you see the press conference yesterday after the midterms with Trump? When he was going after Acosta before he revoked his press pass, and now they're saying that Acosta assaulted the woman who had the microphone, and if you look at the video, it's complete crap. And then I guess Alex Jones doctors the video. Is that what happened? And so now they've got a second narrative being promoted by Sarah Sanders where the guy actually sort of knocks her arms. Oh God. Dead pimp wins Nevada election. I'm in Amsterdam. Beautiful city marked by canals and lovely centuries-old architecture and a conspicuous haze of weed. It's everywhere. Natalie said, would you like to go walk by the Red Light District? Now, for those who may not know what the Red Light District is, Amsterdam is a pretty progressive city, right? Instead of, being kind of this puritanical environment, which, has all these sort of blue law moral sins. They're like, screw that. Let's just legalize it. Maybe we'll even tax it. People are going to do it anyway. Let's let them do what they're going to do. We're all big kids. I hope I'm representing Amsterdam correctly. And so, you want to go smoke weed? Great. Knock yourself out. You want to get a prostitute and go have a good time? We looked it up. I'm not because we were going to do the Red Light District. We're not doing it. We were just curious. I mean, it's a curiosity. Apparently, 50 euros gets you oral sex and sex with a condom, both. Or 30 for an individual. Oral sex with a condom or regular sex with a condom for 30 euros. I forget what the euro to dollar conversion is, but it's relatively close. Usually 15 to 20 minutes, they say on the average. And I'm thinking, what kind of a culture attracts, if you worked for Dennis Hoff, I guess some of those women were making freaking, $1,000 an hour. I mean, they were high dollar deals, but I can't imagine it's like that in most of the rest of the world. Does prostitution become problematic because it's attracting people who may have nowhere else to go. They have maybe nowhere to live, no education. So in desperation, they sort of sell themselves out sexually. I'm one of those people who believes that prostitution should be legal and regulated, just as I think drugs should be legal and regulated. The people who are wanting to do them are doing them anyway. And the idea that we are using all of these resources to try to stop what human beings are doing, it's complicated, and there are no perfect answers. But if I'm going to say that a woman's right to choose includes the right to or to not abort a child, I also have to be able to say that it's a woman's right to be able to decide, or a man's right, if they want to use their body to have sex for money. And so, I think. I don't know. I worry a little bit about whether or not, anytime you have any kind of industry, you will find a dark side to it. So you will find those people who abuse it. You'll find people who get chewed up in the system. You'll find people who go there not because it's what they wanted to do, but because they were so desperate they had nothing else, and they end up being in a place they never wanted to be and might damage them in some way. I mean, I understand all these arguments against, but I'm just saying in the grand scheme, for the moment, what I've come to the conclusion of is that I think prostitution should be legal. I have no problem with the red light district. So we walk down, and the windows are actually outlined in neon red. The rooms are not owned by the prostitutes. The rooms are owned by the building or room owners who lease them out to prostitutes. And the prostitutes just hang out in the window. And you walk by and I guess you're shopping. Most of them in lingerie. There was one woman. She was in panties and a bra. She was washing her hair in a sink. And they were acting as if no one else was around, probably because they just didn't care. Most of them were on their phones. They're just sitting there like texting and playing Angry Birds. I don't know what they're doing. It's killing time, waiting for some John, we still call them Johns, to come up, some client or potential client to come up and knock on the door. Hello. Hi, I think you're really attractive. I would like to have sex. I guess. How does that conversation go? Hello, I would like to negotiate, because there's a negotiation. You go in, and I guess you're still separated to a degree. There's a partition, and then the person says, I want this. Is there a checklist? Is there a menu? I like this and this and this. And she's like, fine, that'll be this amount of euros. And he says, oh, God, I can't quite afford that. What if we only did this? She says, okay, I will do that. And it'll cost you this. And it lasts about this long. And he says, fine. So they come to an agreement. Okay. And then she takes him back into the room, and then they do whatever behind a curtain. So right behind the display case area, there is a curtain. And you assume that if no one is standing in the display area with their phone or washing their hair or doing whatever they do, dancing, that there's something perhaps going on. Perhaps they're behind the curtain servicing a client, you see. And it's so weird coming from the state of Oklahoma, where we are morally still in the early 19th century. You see the movie The Witch? It's not. Everybody says it's a brilliant film. I just didn't get it. I did not get The Witch. I had to turn on subtitles to be able to understand what the hell they were saying on The Witch. But that kind of Puritan culture where everything is the devil, that's this culture. The idea of putting prostitutes in windows and then advertising that they're available with the big red light while they're busy texting in their panties and doing their thing, and somebody can walk in for 50, let's call it $60. $60? I always thought it was like hundreds of dollars. So how many Johns do you cycle through in a day to make how much money? And is that money taxed? What percentage is the tax rate for? Is it called a service industry? I have questions. What's your opinion on legalized prostitution? I mean, what if they were to open a red light district in your neighborhood? What do you think? What would you say? What would your opinion be of someone who sold sex for money? I mean, it's supply and demand. And if you can provide the supply, you can pay your bills, you can do whatever you're doing, if you can do it on your terms. What if you worked for Dennis Hoff down in Nevada at the Bunny Ranch and you're making $500, $700, $800, $1,000 an hour? An hour. Times how many hours? Times minus you're taxed at, let's call it 27%. Do this, and you kind of maybe they have to pay. These are the things that occupy my mind. I'm one of those weird people who hates the smell of weed. Loved Amsterdam. Beautiful, beautiful city. I hate the smell of weed. I hate the smell of weed. And some beers, because I think they smell like feet. And then they would speak to us in Dutch, which is an amazing language. I was told it is the fourth most complex language in the world. And I can understand why, because much of it emanates from right here, sort of under the throat. I didn't go speak at Atheist Day 2018 in Utrecht. I went to Utrecht. Yeah, I can't do it. They do it so well. Utrecht, it had a T at the beginning. Everything they did was, there's such a nuance. And then the people who were from further south, well, they have less of that throaty thing going on. So we would be at a table, and it would be amazing to watch them as they communicated so fluently. Most of them trilingual. German, English, and Dutch. Many of them also spoke a measure of French. And they're just going, sliding out of English and just... And they all laughed because it was funny. I have no idea what they're talking about. And I thought to myself, I don't even know if I could attempt to. You'd almost have to be born into this language to be able to truly get the nuance of it. And it's funny because the Dutch understand how hard it is and how unusual it must sound to the rest of us. Right? I thought French was weird. French is like, they do this weird sort of combination of vowels, adieu. But Dutch was like, it's like somebody was throttling a cat. And then everyone sort of making fun of the different versions, the different incarnations of Dutch, the variations of Dutch. It was fascinating. I became, on this trip, absolutely reminded of my own cultural naivety. And Natalie and I have been talking about attempting here at Midlife to attempt to learn a second language. It ain't going to be Dutch. Way too hard for my ass. Natalie wants to attempt French. For practicality reasons, I'm thinking if we were to do it, it might be Spanish. Because Spanish is the second language that is most commonly spoken here in the United States, Spanish. But she's like, but French is more beautiful. And I'm like, nobody around here speaks French. I have read, and I think there's some science to this, that the learning of a new language is actually a beneficial thing for you to do. It's a sort of a beneficial mental exercise. It's helpful in sort of staving off Alzheimer's type stuff, when you start to lose your memory, and that's happening to me. I walk into the room looking for my keys while I'm holding my keys. Or I'll walk in and say, why did I walk in this room? What was I about to say? Hey, Natalie will ask me, what did this article say about this? And honestly, I have to pull it back up because it's not imprinting as well as it used to on my mind, and it's not going to get any better. They say learning a second language often will help train your brain. It helps fire those synapses or whatever the terminology is. Now, I don't know if we'll follow through with it, but it has us thinking. I mean, you think about all of the different cultures in the world who speak more than one language. And here we are in the United States of America. When we travel, we have this expectation that everybody has to speak in a language that we understand. And many people do, unless you're French. And honestly, I was prepared for the French to hate us. The French people that we met were delightful. delightful, precious people. They didn't hate us. They didn't make fun of us for being American. Nobody mentioned Trump until we got to the Dutch Skeptics Congress in Amersfoort. We were talking about pseudoscience, and you can't talk about anti-science these days without Trump's name coming up. I don't know. We came back to the United States aware that, aware of how beneficial travel is when it comes to really expanding your horizons. How important it is to continue to expand our horizons. And you know what I really came away with, and I guess this is what I'll leave you with today. I came away with the reminder that people are people. You know, when we hear many in a specific country talk about people from other places, there's us and there's them. There's our tribe and then there's the other. Well, those people don't do this. Well, the French really aren't very nice. We heard quite a bit of that. Where we went, there were smiles, there was laughter, there was kindness, there was help. You know, we got lost at one point. We're trying to decide, we're getting off this, I don't know if you call it the tube or the subway in France, but we were supposed to get off at a specific exit. And we didn't realize until we surpassed or went past the exit that it had been closed for construction, meaning we were going to a place that was not in our plans. And we weren't sure how to get back and how far this next stop was away. And everything's in French. Nothing's in English. So I start to get off at the next stop. The doors are open for about 3 seconds. Some people jump in front of Natalie and the doors start to close before she can get off the tram. And she panics and throws the suitcase into the door. Boom. Now we know we're holding up the tube or the subway or the tram or the train or whatever. Guy stands up politely, helps us open the door and helps her get out. And when we get out to the upper level, someone who speaks not a lick of English helps us find the next train stop by pointing and smiling. And we sort of did this weird pantomime. Just people. They were just people. When we had a question anywhere or when we were curious about something, they would eagerly engage. It's interesting. We were in Bruges standing on what they call, bridge, which was over the River of Love. And there was a couple that was trying to take a selfie of themselves with the water and the swans and the greenery in the background. And somebody came up and they didn't speak each other's language. And they were like, you want me to take a picture of you? I know the selfie's not really working. You're not getting the angle you want. This is all happening with eye contact and hand gestures. You know, would you like me to take your picture? You, me, take you? I'll take a picture. You know, I guess this is universal sign language for picture. Yeah. And they smile and they do that wave. Thank you. And then they go back. And these people who didn't, they were likely from a different country, certainly a different culture, spoke a completely different language. They did not have any of that common ground between them. Came back and with a tremendous amount of joy and glee, took a photograph of this older couple in front of the lake and the swans and the bridge, and then handed their phone back and everybody smiled. I saw that more than once. People would then return the favor. You want me to take a picture of you two? Take you two? And then they would switch. We wanted a picture on the bridge. We couldn't get the right angle. There was a guy didn't speak a lick of English. Natalie flags him down and she says, would you take a picture with us on the bridge? So he's like, oh, yeah. He takes our phone. We walk. We're probably 25 feet away. Takes our picture. He sort of hands it to us, makes sure that we're happy. He's not where we're from. He doesn't know who we are. He doesn't really get us or relate to us or speak our language, but we were speaking, communicating, sort of gelling in that moment. People are people. With exceptions, you'll find good and bad everywhere you go, but largely you found people who were helping each other across the street, and they were opening doors, and they were saying thank you. They were saying, please, is it merci? And is it merci is thank you? And s'il vous plaît is please. Is that right? S'il vous plaît. In Dutch, it would be You found humanity's commonalities superseding the cultural differences between them. And, what is that saying? And it wasn't Jack Kerouac, but who was it who was talking about how one of the best cures for bigotry or something along those lines was travel. Isn't that the absolute truth? To be able to see the world, see other places, other people, and see them as people. That's why so many of these sort of chest-thumping nationalists here in the United States, when they can so easily brush off the plight of other people who are suffering in other parts of the world, is because they're not really seeing them as equals, as human beings. There was one person, I'm livid at the thought of it, was talking about the caravan hundreds of miles off of our southern border, and they're coming up, and Donald Trump calls them invaders, even though they're largely oppressed, like women and children, people who are trying to plead for asylum. There's a hugely complex story going on there. And this person said, you know what? I think that they come up and come up to our border. If they touch the wall, they should be shot on sight. Just shoot them. Where does that come from? Because we've dehumanized the other. We don't see people outside of this subjectively drawn border as worthy, meritorious people, human beings, flesh and blood human beings. Travel helps to cure that. For our hosts in Amersfoort and in Utrecht, and for those who sent such amazing well wishes, for those who gave us the fudge and the stroopwafels, for those who have been so amazingly kind on those 9 days of travel, thank you all very much. My next travel is taking me to Florida. Tomorrow, Friday, I will be in Fort Myers, Florida. Then on Saturday, Clearwater, Florida. On Sunday in Orlando. All those details are on the speaking tab at sethandrews.net. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you later.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. thethinkingatheist.com.